Hello, my name is Agnieszka Rojek, and right now I'm busy preparing my presentation of the Agnipolitanian Academy, which is my academy, the development within the noble kingdom of Agnipolitania, a special place that I created for my life, starting with the capital city Agnipolis in 2013. In November, the 1st of December is the time when it already exists. The Agnipolitanian Academy has 8 departments, so to say. There is 6 faculties and 2 laboratories now. The faculties are the Faculty of Fine Literature and Arts. That was the first one, the one I started with naturally because of the philological background. And the Faculty of Superb Education, which is a natural development. Then I created the legal lab that is natural in the context of my problems of the legal nature, where I am a victim, obviously. However, the problems multiply, and so I started working on the legal issues. And so I had the legal lab. And then there were further developments. But I have not, I have not worked on them focusing on the work, but I was living my life, and some of it has come into the faculties actually. So there is the Faculty of Natural and Supernatural Sciences, the Faculty of Histories, and the Faculty of Health and Beauty, and the Faculty of Finance. And finally, I added the PR lab. So this is what I have managed to create by now. And I have been presenting the Academy in Twitter, my Twitter Agroic account. And this is the recording I'm making especially for that account, especially for that presentation. This is the presentation I want to leave behind when I will take a leave, so that people could have a look. I think that my concepts, my ideas, my overall innovatory thinking within the Agnipolitanian Academy has been being stolen by people who do not respect intellectual or artistic copyrights, and the people who basically are cruel enough to ruin this one flagship of hope, so to say, knowing that my life had been ruined. The people who introduced sex into Agnipolitania, those people are really devastating, but they are my enemies. So as I will be working on my Agnipolitanian Academy website, you can have a look. And there have been some developments that I have not covered yet. So I want to say a few words in that respect. Well, basically, the recording I'm making now is for the Faculty of Natural and Supernatural Sciences. And there are 2 nodes, main nodes, maps that cover the faculty. The first one that is above, when you look at it in Twitter, deals with spirituality, symbolism, tools, biology, exact sciences, research and investigations, and the category that is very important is brain, apart from the sun gate. Now, research or investigations is covered more or less in the department, in the PR lab, in the PR lab. So this is about data, and it's also covered in the note on my NSA CIA report. As I'm saying, this is these are approaches to data. So this is the general outline. As for the Stargate, it is the idea that you will see covered, not really covered, but touched upon in the recordings that, I mean not recordings, the videos that follow. And by now I have two, so to say, where I do not speak. My two or three, I'm not sure yet which one I will post. I will certainly post two. One of them is from my desk, where you have the interplay of the sun with the things around me here as I work. And the other one is from my wall, where you can see an opening a gate actually, and you have an impression that there's a flying object going through it. This is the site I saw on my wall. This is quite unclear where it came from, because the wall is placed in such a way that the windows are on the side of the wall, so it must be some kind of reflection. So the sun must have gone into the room and got somehow entangled with the spaces and objects there in the room, and waves or whatever, to create the image on the wall. So you have the window here, and you have the wall. So this is the wall on which the picture was. And there's another one that I noticed when I was in my bathroom. I had doubts about taking pictures, because I did not want to make the entry to the bathroom. But then I thought that the people were breaking into my privacy. For example, in 2015, Tomek Siemoniak. I had Tomek Siemoniak's sexual site as I was taking a bath. So I know that people do not respect my privacy. I hope that it will be counteracted somehow, considering the modest person I am. And you know, the first time I realized that someone can look at me through my eyes was in 2009. Since 2009, I have never looked in the mirror or at my private parts to avoid someone looking at them. So this is really a huge violation. And this is very, very suppressive. This is something that kills me. It is killing me every day, actually. So I decided that because I cannot do anything about it anyway. So perhaps I will take the pictures, because I could see that the light, the interplay of light, the interplay of sun was pulsating, and it seemed that it was really a message, especially that I have the window there, which is like a ship window because it's round, and behind the window I have the tree that I don't remember the name of. In English, I remember the name in Polish. Let me check it. In Polish, it's brzoza, and in English, it's birch. So the birch, which is the tree that became quite important in Poland due to the Smolensk catastrophe. This is the Department of Natural and Supernatural Sciences. The meaning of it is that spiritual and the spiritual and the physical interplay. And the big task of the department is to learn to differentiate between the two. The ontological assumption is that there is the spiritual, so somewhere behind the appearances, the manipulations, there's really the spirit. And as for the spiritual life in Aglipolitania, I do believe in God, and we, the Aglipolitanians, once there are more of us, believe in God, and we also believe in the extraterrestrial existence, which is also the tribe believing in God. So, in that context, we have the Sandgate, which is, I had a personal, well, first of all, when I was raped in the middle of the day, and I sent this silent scream, and I believe there was an interplay between me and the extraterrestrial life out there. Actually, there is, in my candlelight, this one, when you look at it, there are those pictures that I present. If you look into, in that particular department, if you look into the glass here, you will see different shapes sometimes, and in one of them you will actually see the extraterrestrial being lying there. So, and you actually can see as he had a wife maybe, and as if she were pregnant, and as if he were as if he had his hand on her stomach. So this is this is very fascinating, and it can be someone putting the images in. However, I do believe that even if there is someone, for example, some astronomist or physicist or psychiatrist, people who can, or Scientologists, people who can operate energies, or the Illuminati. There are extraterrestrial beings behind. I'm very excited about it. To be honest, it's very fascinating, and I love it. There's this you know, I communicated this intention in Twitter or Facebook. I think it was in Twitter, that I wanted to be a mediator between Earthians and the extraterrestrial beings. So perhaps they decided, well, why not? And they decided that my little round table could serve the purpose. So this is a long introduction, and now let me. As I said, this is the first note that covers the department, introduces the faculty of natural and supernatural sciences, and I will definitely write the Nobel Queen Aglipolitania note, which is a short introduction in sentences, not a map. So this is the first one, and then you have one of the branches, so to say, is brain. And this brain, I developed this idea of brain, and there are many things here. And I thought that perhaps I could say a few words about it before I leave. Let me say one more thing. I want to prepare my birthday speech, and I hope to present it in some order in that speech. However, I want to complete that presentation today or tomorrow, because I have legal work to do. I need to write up a legal situation. So now let me develop the idea of the brain, because this is quite exceptional and it is totally mine. Yes, what I wanted to say about the Stargate still. There was this connection. more and more I was feeling this connection between the sun and me, and I actually could see that vibration. I could actually receive some sort of that. And then one day I had the idea that perhaps that they were arriving through the sun, that there might have been some things happening there that we have no idea of. And it connects, I must mention it, because it connects with Stephen Hawking, Richard Dawkins, and Stephen Hawking. But Stephen Hawking was talking about black holes as a possible gate. And this is when I read him on that subject, and he was also warning against the extraterrestrial existence. So I believe the contacts he has are totally different from mine. He must have contact with the beings that are not that are evil, to cut a long story short. And mine are very positive, very good. But there is a reservation about them. So because you can how do you know it? If you are a messenger, you know it because on the one hand, I was living in peace, and this is really the Tibetan Buddhist life. But then I was attacked, and once I was attacked, especially in that way, you had the ISIS. So you must realize that it is really something really very, very good, very beautiful, very altruistic. Unthinkable, since I have never met a person like me, really. And then, on the other hand, you have this cruelty, total cruelty that has been exercised by the ISIS, and it connects. I know it connects to the pre-Latin America, South America tribes, and the ancient Egypt. So I am certain about it, and somehow it connects with that beautiful, absolutely clean, spiritually pure Tibet. So and this is really shocking, but this is how it is, simply. And that would be it. And probably out of that, I got. Aha, there's another thing. I drew a picture once. I was sitting here, and I was thinking of the Illuminati because at one point it seems I became an enemy of the Illuminati. So it seemed that they were attacking me. They were trying to destroy me, destroy my original personality, to change me, which is a corruption, basically. So they were trying to corrupt the purity, the spiritual purity, but also the purity in sexual terms. I'm a virgin. I'm pure, and they have put all sorts of bad energies, bad pictures into my space. So, and they made those connections. They have put routers into my mouth. I don't have it because I have never given a blowjob. So, this is a totally impossible connection. Still, it exists. So, and now I'm fighting to get rid of it because I cannot live like that at all. This is killing me. I am totally withdrawn from life. I spend my days lying on my bed and trying to mobilize myself so that I would, I don't know, make a recording or write a note or do whatever. I have gained 20 kilograms. So, and this is creating an illness simply. So my throat is to be absolutely cleaned. That has been happening again must be gone, and it's non-negotiable. Um, or the Aripolitanian spiritual army will attack, and you can be certain they will. Brain. Here we have exact sciences, storage, prism, spaces, biology, operation, electricity, mirror cells. So let's start from those simple, those branches that are not developed by now. prisms. It has to do with the metaphor of glasses, and I have heard that Popov has been claiming that it's his theory. I'm not claiming it to be my theory. It is quite possible that I have read it some, and I don't remember having read it. It has developed in my life as a concept through my interest and study of Scientology. So if you arrived at it, and even if I read about it and left it, but perhaps it is connected because there was the idea of my MI thesis that had to do with it. Actually, the idea of developing emotional intelligence through reading different sorts of texts and trying to arrive at those realities, to capture, to discover, to understand, to go into the realities of the text through the study of metaphors. And here I turn to cognitivism and cognitive linguistics, and the study of metaphor. And the conceptual metaphor, that the concept that I used to create my concept, the defining metaphor in my MI thesis. The defining metaphor is also the metaphor you think by, but it has the ingredient of setting the limits for a certain reality. For example, if you have the metaphor life is a war as the defining metaphor in a play, as I was proving is the case in Othello, you will see the characters operating within the thinking typical of the thinking one goes into at war. So you actually live your life as you were in a war, and there are different roles that people have, and there are other elements that go into play, like pestilence as a weapon. So you can poison someone's mind, someone's thoughts. Basically, you defile them. You can, or you simply create hostility or fear or whatever, but or you intimidate them. There are all sorts of ways in which you can poison another person's thought. For example, Assangists poison people's thoughts with regards to Scientologists. I'm the victim of that. And there's the other side of the story, that is Scientologists poison people's minds with regard to psychologists, for example. It does, okay, perhaps if the Mr. Guru takes over, like some have done in my life, treating me like what do you call it? You know, would you have a box into it to get muscles, or you do other experiments on a rat or a rabbit. So this is the way the Assanges have treated me through some psychologists. But then there are people who go into psychology because they like to help people, and the attitude that each person that is interested in psychology is an enemy to the Scientologist is simply insane. The same concerns every person, thinking that way of every person that starts studying memes, which are the concept I need to develop here, to somehow differentiate between my attitude and Richard Dawkins, because I think there's another thing that I have started creating this faculty of supernatural and natural sciences, and basically I got some ideas from the experience, but the experience of abuse. However, this does not belong to Richard Dawkins. I have not read even that note. I just learned that it was Richard Dawkins' idea. Memes were Richard Dawkins' theory, and he called the science memetics. And I was very disappointed because by the time I knew Richard Dawkins was my enemy. So now I'm in that difficult situation when I know that he had been abusing me, that he had been my enemy. But all the same, I have to acknowledge him as the scientist who developed a theory that is a groundbreaking theory, actually. But I don't know the details of his theory because I have not read this entry. I learned about memes from a book by Bieżycki, Mariusz Bieżycki. I don't know if he's connected with Kamila Bieżycka-Osica, the journalist who seems to be victimizing me, to have been victimizing me for a long time, at least since the start of 2015. But I think she was involved in the rape in 2013 or was it 2012 as well, that she's somehow connected to the Wachowicz family. All in all, it needs to be emphasized that also that development of all this knowledge has its roots in the books I was collecting. As a student, then I had more money. I was getting pocket money from my dad, and books were always my priority. So indeed, I boast about my library because this is what I have been investing in all my life in terms of finance. There is there are quite many books from the popular science, and I have never had time to read them. But they are the uncles, and this is obviously my background data. But apart from that, I have that faculty of brain that makes it possible for me to observe. There's a scientific observation. Just noticing obvious facts like the watch shows 10 past 8. I have been talking for 26 minutes and 46 seconds now. Like I have the write-up, a map of the brain in front of me, and so on. So this is noticing the obvious. And I think else I need to say about in terms of introduction. Oh, science. Okay, what my experience in science? Well, actually, there isn't much. In the primary school, I was excellent at maths, so this was really top, but I did not apply myself too much. I could have developed better. I did attend extracurricular classes, which were taking me on a higher level because I was doing constructions tasks like you have one figure and you have to arrive at another figure, but by making changes that have to do with knowing the mathematical rules. So somehow I could always see the way, which is very important. It is geometry. It was on a plane, so this is quite simple if you think in terms of science. But this is a background. This is something you start with, so it was always simple for me. I knew how you arrive from this to that figure, and people tend to have problems with that. Another thing, and this is basically the level of excellence that I'm talking about. Then you have the experience of, well, actually, the exact sciences did not exist for me in the primary school. I never went into it. I was just learning the lesson and delivering it. And delivering the answers when I was asked questions. The same concerns the secondary school, except that in the secondary school I decided to take maths as my completion exam, one of my not math but chemistry as one of my completion exams. So this is quite important because it gave me the focus. I did not do too well, but I did some practice of writing the formulas, the changes, the chemical changes And also I had this experience of having some experiments, chemical experiments with substances. I always had this sense, I always felt like, when I had a substance, I always wanted to put my, to taste it, or, to see. I had this temptation, it was very strong. But I did not, so this was a sort of playful. Our chemistry teacher was lovely, so I could, a sort of naughty girl, but this is the climate for my science, and. But I never had the knowledge, the proper knowledge, and passing the exam was extremely difficult for me. I'd rather not recall it. And then at the university, I really wanted to go into study. I even took an optional course, which was which was interdisciplinary, so it was really beautiful because you had lectures, and each lecture covered a different area. And this is how I got to know about the existence of Professor Heller, who is the priest, and he studies parallel worlds. And he's the only person I remember from that long list, actually. But at the time, I was already. I had already been destroyed to the point of not being able to get out of that general collapse, which ended up in my spending my days drinking beer. I mean, I could follow the obligatory courses to prepare for my classes, the obligatory classes at the university. I was the kind of student who was always active, so I had to be prepared, or I would not go to the classes or lectures at all. But a lot of things were somehow going away. And then I wanted to start studying natural and exact sciences based on maths, which was an interdisciplinary, very elite not faculty, would you call it, individual program of studies, organized by a few university academy, also technical academy level educational institutions in Krakow, the Jagiellonian University in Agden, but also the Academy, Akademia Górniczo-Hutnicza. I'm not sure how it's translated, so I will not be thinking of it now. Or Akademia Rolnicza, that is for agriculture. Well, obviously it would be very difficult to pass exams together, but I was not able to study them because I had already the block of maths. So this is the overall content, but I did have this interest then, and then I was thinking of a second faculty. I was even at the educational fair sometime later. I'm not sure if it was after completing the studies already or before. Anyway, I did go to that end with the nuclear physics. But then I also withdrew. It was far too overwhelming at the time. So this is one thing. And then another thing is I went to study Scientology. And when you go to study Scientology, you get a totally different perspective. And this actually puts you on a totally different plane. Because to start with, you have a different definition of a static. Of a static? No, what is it? Oh, I don't remember right now, but if life is static, what is it? You see, I need to check it. Anyway, basically this system is a system totally different from the system you learn from physics. So actually, if you have the knowledge from physics, the traditional knowledge of physics, and you take this knowledge to the world of Scientology, then it might be that you get hindered in your acquisition of, in your perception even, through the glasses or spectacles that you put on when you study Scientology. So you actually can have a prism from your school, that or prior education that makes it impossible for you to view life as it is. And this can work the other way around. That is, um, it can work for Scientologists. For example, you have been fed with some kind of data. For example, that whatever happens in your life and does not go well is your bank. So basically, you never understand that there is another person that is working on you. You think this is your mind, your reactive mind, and it has nothing to do with your reactive mind. It is a different person working for you with the full intention to have a lot of fun at you thinking this is your reactive mind. Well, you can claim that the person is actually the reflection of you, and this is actually you. You wanted this to happen. Okay, let's suspend it. Let me give you an example of a prism, because I think this is what we are dealing with now, more or less. Let me start with saying that I have never been audited, so I do not have the experience of this phenomenon. But basically, I think what we are talking about is this concept of energy. That there's this, I don't know the language, so I will speak a simple language, a common language. So basically, it means that if I have this, I can change its form, but it will still be there as energy. It cannot disappear altogether. And it has to do with auditing, because what you have in auditing is a disappearance of engrams, right? So you have some energy. So this is, let's say this is my engram, and through auditing, it is supposed to discharge and disappear completely. So this is what auditing is about. And then you have the Assangists, who come in with their theory, and I think that the theory, that the assumption, the axiom they have in mind is exactly that this cannot disappear. Basically, what you can do is that it was here, well, it was here, and there's something here. So the only thing you can actually do is take it from here and put it here. So they basically, I think that what they have been trying to convince people about is that the people who get auditing do not have their minds clear, in the sense of the engram disappearing completely, so that it's no longer anywhere in any space, but that you have actually this engram put, for example, to the Aggie, to crown her and let her die, because we don't value Aggie too much. I'm certain that auditing is about the disappearance. I'm a creationist. This is against an ontological assumption. And what it means is that you can create something out of nothing, provided you are on a certain level. And if you can create something out of nothing, you can presuppose or make a hypothesis that you can make something disappear completely. So these are prisms, okay? This is an example of a prism. So you have a certain knowledge that makes you think in certain terms, and that create your possibilities and impossibilities. Spaces. Um, this is a very difficult concept, but this is an intuition, so I will not go into it. But I believe that um, your brain. Well, okay, there is one concept that is what you have been doing to me, that is merging me with other people, where my brain naturally goes to different spaces, okay? But this is not the concept I had. The concept I had is that you can have spaces in your brain, like something what happened to me today. Is it today or yesterday? That I actually, but this was in my mouth. I had to buy in my mouth. But I don't. This is not what I. But perhaps this is partly what I meant. Um, anyway, this is a concept that I had. I simply had this idea, this premonition of the existence of spaces that connect with your brain, and then you will have to also understand how I view brain, because when you think of brain, you normally think of that piece of mass in your head, and I think of it as something much more powerful and interconnected than this piece of mass in your head. Um, so I just signal it. Electricity. This is about all the operations. We must be aware of it. I always say, because sometimes I try to tell my mom that someone is operating on her brain, but her prisms do not allow it. And so I try to say, how can it be? And I say, well, think of your brain. Think of, for example, you have television. How can it be that that's an image, that something appears on the screen of TV? I mean, the person you see in the screen is not is not sitting there in your room. So this is basically, one of the things that you have, like the reception and the receptor. Your brain is a receptor, and but this is only one of the things in which you can think that, well, there's something about electricity, but there's more to it, obviously, and it has to do with electromagnetic fields, with you operating in all sorts of environments. Well, that is especially valid for politicians or actors or journalists operating in the digital world, with all the so this is something that we so basically what happens to the brain, like how this brain gets connected with all the things around, and what happens when your brain gets connected with your mobile phone, and so on and so on. Mirror cells is a very important concept for me. The basic idea is that we have mirrors. So if you have a mother and a child, and the mom smiles to the child's face reflects the mom's. So this is the basic concept. So then you can have the situation when there's a beautiful person taking your pictures, and no, don't put all into it. And your pictures are beautiful. So this is one simple idea, but I actually go further than that, especially since I have been suppressed by all sorts of shadows of people who are much more powerful than I am. But shadow is one thing. Then another thing is what they can put into your space, like all sorts of energies and spaces, actually, that can be taken from all sorts of situations. And perhaps part of movies too. Assangists know more than me about it. However, as I'm saying, they are learning about it and practicing it within their prison, and I don't have it. So I observe it, and I have a totally different background. Apart from that, I'm pure, so I don't have any preconceptions. So, you know, I notice the obvious and say what I see. So I would say that there's the idea of the mirror self. For example, if let us say that I'm having dinner with a man who watches pornography, and let's say that he does not get involved in pornography himself, but he watches pornography. Okay, he watches pornography a lot, so he has the pornography in his brain cells, and then he has this aura around him as a reflection, and I'm sitting in front of him, and that goes into my mirror cells to reflect. So I get a certain space, and then there's someone taking a picture of me, and it seems that I watch pornography, or not even that I belong to pornography. And this is very important because we have those theories of the first 6 seconds, especially when you think of it in terms of the subconscious. So basically, we have to reformulate all education to make people know that they are not supposed to make to create their attitudes, especially to people on the basis on the first 6 seconds. Well, as far as the exact science, so these are the short ones. Now, exact sciences. As exact sciences, here I have chemistry and physics. As far as chemistry goes, I have processes and elements. And from elements, I have this idea, this concept that goes from my study of linguistics. That is an essay by Putnam, who had perhaps a different idea. However, the idea I got from it is the idea of water, that water elsewhere can be different from what water is here. Funnily enough, if you look at my pictures in one of the latest series, you actually had H2O in it. So I'm wondering if some Richard Dawkins or Stephen Hawking or some Scientologist has put it in it, or whether it has appeared in some other way, or whether it was a reflection here from the space of my brain. Perhaps my brain was somehow exploded to become my space, not only my brain in the sense of the content, so the knowledge I know. Perhaps this knowledge has become the knowledge emanating elsewhere, and thus you have the physical forms of H2O in the picture of the in the glass, even though it was not written anywhere here. There was not a card with H2O. So how come it's there? So these are the questions I ask. Do you know? I don't. I haven't discovered it yet, but this is absolutely fascinating and worth looking into. And because this is the extraterrestrial world, so I do think that even if someone put it there, this is actually a message from the extraterrestrial existence saying, yes, you are done right. Water on our planet is something totally different from what you think of, or maybe not totally different, but slightly different from what you are looking for. And when I wrote about it for the first time, it was a day or two, and then the NASA discovered something that was like water, but it had a different state. I don't remember exactly what it was. So this is why you could not see it anytime. But they discovered that there was actually water there. It just was it was changing due to some different physics or different chemistry or whatever. So I do think that this is a groundbreaking concept, and it comes from linguistics. exact sciences. So what I'm saying is that the elements we have on Earth do not need to be the same on other planets. Exact sciences, physics. And then obviously the compounds and the processes and so on and so forth. And there's, I don't know the names also, there are compounds and there's something else. Substances or whatever, I don't know. A lot of study in front of you. Physics. We have traditional physics, which is basically take the book and studying it. But then we have physics out of this world. And another branch is teleportation. So I do have a book on teleportation, so I buy such books, and obviously the first concept comes from the movie Star Trek, but I put it here in a different category. And I do think that there was an image of teleportation in the glass too. So I don't know if it's Stephen Hawking, Richard Dawkins, someone else, or excuse me, I did not acknowledge Satanists yet. Absolutely, it can be Energal, out of this world. Star Trek. So this is one thing. So basically, there's a lot of knowledge in the movie. Then we have Scientology, and Scientology is a different branch. So you have life as a static. Yes, this is I think the basic concept that gives you stability. And you have postulates. So the first action actually is postulates. A postulate in Scientology is a causative thought. So this is not any thought. And this is why I call it an action. We have digitality. So when I think of digitality, I think of Assange. This is what they know a lot about, and this is Matrix. Personally, I think that Matrix is a cult. So because when I realized it when I started. When I got in communication with CIA, because I have terrible problems, I have been put on the list of the enemies of the USA for some reason. And so they created a huge problem for me. So I did have to go to direct. And after watching Matrix, which is my favorite movie, you have this idea of Smith. So the first time I looked at Mr. David S. Cohen, all I could see was Mr. Smith. Seriously. But I need to break through it somehow. And even if he is Mr. Smith, so, well, I don't know. But then I watched some of his videos. I did not watch all of them because they are very long. And some I did not really concentrate on his philosophy and his politics. I was getting the general picture, and the picture I got was that this is the person I can communicate to. So it works. It will. I mean, it should work. And it might be different due to all sorts of reasons, but basically the best idea. So I actually departed from that matrix that makes every CIA agent your enemy. But then what's the situation as they started developing was actually they did make me, you remember how Neo was in the with the agents, and what they did to his mother, like a gun. So they did all sorts of things to me of that kind, and I did have this like, ah. And this is also in one of the pictures here. There's this big. And it's terrible, really. But I think I don't know. It might be CIA or it might be the Assanges actually. So this is a very shaky ground. But I in a way, or at least spiritually, part of me is a woman of the desert. So you have the suns moving. We have parallel worlds. So this is the concept from Professor Heller. And I think this is exactly the communication I got in one of my picture, in the series of pictures from the Little Round Table in 2013 or 14. Which one was it? The one with the lamp, 2013. So I had this lamp, and the cover, top covering. It was out of paper, and it was crushed. So I took a piece of material and put on the lamp. And then I started taking pictures. They did not notice it at first, but then when I looked at it, it was like, oh, and I could see that there was a planet and another planet, and they were just like, they were like. So I do think that these are twin planets. So I do think that planet Earth has a twin planet, and this is what you see in the picture there. This is absolutely fascinating, of course. And basically, I think there is a key, because some communications are of a different nature, and you actually have this priest working on parallel worlds. So it makes me think of the religious order, that this is actually potent, and this can be a proof of God, that this is not man-made, really. So, and then you ask yourself a question about religious order as such. So, what is a religious order really? In the sense of, Christianity, Buddhism, and so on, Islam, Judaism, but then, the developing world is like, why do we have Scientology? And then we have entanglement. So this is also, entanglement has become actually one of the key concepts as I started thinking of it, and you understand how you get entangled in your life. Obviously, the one of the most powerful entanglements is sexual experience, but then there are other things like traumatic experiences or happiness. This is the idea of getting connected with some people in a way that makes the two well, normally you think of entangled particles as the particles that are in asynchrony. So when something is happening to this particle, it's happening. So I cannot coordinate. Well, I need to practice this. I would have to coordinate. No, but you know what I mean. Basically, these are to be coordinated. An exercise for brain and body, how you can coordinate. But basically, the idea is that they are to be in synchrony. Do you think it has told you something about my brain? The two hemispheres that actually I cannot coordinate my two hemispheres, perhaps. But you should remember that I have been merged with Andrzej Duda and his left hand. So, I left-handed. I used my right hand normally. There was time when I was practicing to have both-handedness, or however you call it, and with the table tennis bat, what do you call it? And the little balls, with my right hand and with my left hand, and I was getting better and better with my left hand. But then but then I realized suddenly that and so this is basically when you are merged with. No, I did not have sex with. I did not have sex with this man. Andrzej Duda, and I did never offer having sex with him. This is one of the things that are happening, and the entanglement would mean that it is something. So this is a key concept in the sense of, for example, if they are doing all sorts of things in that huge laboratory in Switzerland, Where are the particles entangled with the particles that undergo those huge changes in the laboratory? And can it be that they are connected with the tsunami in Japan? So these are all sort of questions. And I think entanglement is more than that. I think I got entangled with extraterrestrial existence during the rape in 2013 in the sun, actually. And so I do feel that my body synchronizes with the body of an extraterrestrial being, and this is not Mr. Cohen, who likes science fiction and has been trying to put some weird beings into my life. Well, he doesn't like me, so what? It doesn't mean that he has to ruin my life. Then we have biology. And when I think of brain in biology, I think of it as a physical substance, of its physicality. So this is what you normally investigate, research, and what you want to learn, what you study as a scientist when you study brains. So this is probably neurology and whatever you call it. I'm not a specialist in this thing, but I also put this category of life. So you know the spirit. So how does a spirit operate through brain? However, it can be also some other life. Because you know, once you think of extraterrestrial beings, it changes, and then you know, science fiction again comes helpful. Like you have the Solaris by Stanisław Lem, and you have this idea. I did not, I was not able to finish reading that book, but then I got this concept of it being possible actually that there is this ocean. Was it an ocean or what was it, or a lake that was alive in a sense? So if you think in terms of intelligences that are different from the intelligence on the planet Earth, you actually can have the concept of life, and you can have a concept of life that is local, so that would be planet Earth, or transplanetary. So you can assume, for the purpose of scientific analysis or hypothesizing, that there is that there's life that is transplanetary in that sense that I'm here and I'm Agnieszka Rojek and I have a certain form apart from having the certain name, and there's some form with a name on some other planet, and we are manifestations of realizations of the same life, which is different from what a human being is. And it means that we live together. So, you know, and not by means of of an entanglement. Because that, you know, that this is like as if we were one organism. So this is you have life in your finger and you have light in your eye. And you can assume, for example, that, I don't know, something happens to your eye. For example, someone, oh, this is very, very bad, but okay, so let's say you have this finger and you have this finger, okay? So something happened, this finger is alive, but something happened to that finger, and for example, it has started you know, the process that kills the cells. So this is dead, and this is alive, and the death of this one has an impact on that one. But this is really simplified because you have the form that is similar, but you can easily think of the different. I mean, perhaps you cannot because you don't have the scientific imagination, but I can, and so it would mean that whatever I do in my life is actually part of the life that has a different realization on a different planet. That's the concept. Brain operation. So, well, I do acknowledge the cognitivism, um, understanding of and study of brain. And I don't know much about it, so I just had I don't know, I read 10 pages of the Cosin book on the brain imagery. But I got this concept of imagery that has to do with something that I understand mm, as a collection of pictures perceived and received and stored. So this is how I understand imagery. And I do think that it is a key concept, and it works for the study of literature. So my original thesis that was aiming at developing emotional intelligence was, for example, had to do with you read a poem, and when you read that poem, you actually you want to arrive at the I mean, if you want to reach the reality of the poet, which is more than the eye of the poem, because the eye of the poem is the speaker in the poem. It does not have to be the person who wrote the poem. It can be a persona. So, someone who speaks, who expresses certain views, they might have nothing to do with the poet at all. So, you have, but you want to reach the author. And one thing you have is that he or she has chosen certain elements out of this huge world and has put these elements in a certain relation with other elements he or she has chosen out of this huge world. And each word adds. And of course, you look for definitions, for meanings, for connotations. You need to look into the epoch. But you also think of all the things that he could possibly put into it and did not. And somehow you tried to work out what kind of world it really is and how it differs from all the other words that can be. I'm not sure if you get my point, but I think you can. And it starts with the imagery, with the fact that he actually took this image, or that he created this image and put it in a relation to another image. And you can draw it. One of the ideas I had was actually drawing what you read in the poem. But then when you draw it, obviously you use your own imagery then. Because, for example, even if I say, I don't know, a green holder, the first one that comes to my mind is this one. And the poet might have had a totally different mind, a totally different one in mind due to his experience of green holders. And perhaps I could stop at this point because this is the opening. So now let's cognitivism. Basically, when I think of cognitivism, I think of the all the study that goes into computers, because I connected the whole Assange's movement for me is related to cognitivism in the sense of thinking of the brain as a computing machine. Then we have in operation, we have recording. So we have digital and analog and other recording. And these are also intuitions. The intuition that comes from my observation of my perception and thinking of the world, and what I get from interactions with others. Most of the people I have been surrounded with for some time are totally digital. I am analog. I have this idea from my brother, who tried to explain to me that a tape, like a cassette, like I still use them, like Diana Krall, for example, from Budapest, or Janet Jackson from Canada. So this is a tape, and this is analog. And if you have a CD record, this is digital. And I have this intuition that it matters a lot in the sense of recording that as an operation that your brain does. So perhaps there are ways in which you actually habitualize, if you have a word like that, make it a habit for your brain, make it a typical routine way of operating in the analog or digital way. I don't have a mobile phone, and I have more digitalization due to using my laptop, but it's still quite different from the digitalization other people get. Other, and of course, it has to do with the environment also. When you have those towers for mobile phones and or computers. I could notice that there was a huge. I was so angry at my neighbor because I have the connection, the internet connection, the cable, and okay, there's some magnetism, but this is totally different from what my neighbors did when they had this connection, which has the field. So they think they are comfortable, but they actually are poisoning me through creating the field that comes from the device that creates the access to the internet. So I can claim damages, as a matter of fact. Entanglements. I already covered it. So let me say that in that area of entanglements, you can think of cross-planetary entanglements. I have explained it to you. But then you can have cross-galactic entanglements. If you have this idea of life that is entangled, another level would be another galactic. Cross-systemic would be an entanglement, for example, between a Scientologist and an Assangist, or an entanglement between me and Putin or Medvedev is a cross-systemic entanglement, because I belong to a totally different system. So you have the left wing and the right wing, because I am really the right wing. I mean, this is different. If you simply like helping people, and I always like, I hate my pupils now, but then I love them. I really, but they did not invade my identity. So I could meet them at school, and I would come back home and be in my world, which is a spiritual world, which is not a left-wing world at all. And I had private life, of course. Well, perhaps I had some. Perhaps I was being watched over by the Church of Scientology, but they were never intrusive. Cross-cultural. Cross-cultural is the obvious entanglement, for example, could be between a Buddhist and a Christian. So what you have, for example, immediately is the functioning on the very, very subconscious level of the person for whom it is obvious and factual that people reincarnate, and the person for whom it is a nonsense, it is obvious that you have one lifetime and that's it. Even if you believe in the spiritual existence, but what actually happens after your death? Then you have spiritual operation. So the whole spiritual area. So how does spirit operate in brain? For example, I do believe that if you are strong spiritually, I do believe that if I were very strong spiritually, I could get rid of all those terrible things that have been put into my body by very thought. But this is close to the level of God. And physical operation, symbolic operation. Then symbolic operation is something very fascinating. So this is all that has to do with the rituals. And obviously, if you take the perspective of reincarnation, then it is important what rituals you participated in the 16th or 15th century. Because rituals are the marriage of the spiritual with the physical, and they are very engaging and very powerful in the sense of the experience, which is really exceptional. So I do think I am very sensitive to the sensitization must have been going on for ages, and I know it because of the way in which I was experiencing as a child in the primary school, as a teenager, the preparation for Easter. When you go to church and you have, I have not checked what you call it in English. I don't think I will find it. Oh, perhaps I will. If I can find it, I will check immediately. In Polish, it's Droga Krzyżowa. No, we only have Droga Mleczna, Milky Way, not the Milky Way Droga, the Crossway. Perhaps we can find it Krzyżowa. Not unfortunately not. Well, basically, you have those stations where you pray as Jesus Christ goes from one station to another, carrying the cross. And the way I was experiencing it was very not theatrical in the sense of acting something else, but actually the experience, the catharsis experience, sort of catharsis. Well, it was not catharsis because catharsis goes to the ancient theater, and I do think that it was exactly the same effect of the ritual, but it was like really living through it, like as if I were there walking with him, and experiencing. Of course, this is not the same as the physical experience, but you get the emotional engagement and the entanglement. And you have those symbols that stay with you. But it's not only that, there are other symbols, and I believe we have participated in a lot of situations. I mean, maybe not all of you, but perhaps the people. The simple man probably does not have it at that level, but the people who were looking into things, who had this, basically the higher order of existence, must have gone through enormous number of experiences of a symbolic contact. And I believe that our brains, because this is also then you have this concept, this is in Scientology, that you have the memory of cells. That in each cell, normally you learn about the genetic memory, but also in Scientology you have the memory in cells. So, for example, if you take, for example, if something happened to my finger here, and you cut off my finger, the experience is still in other cells. And in the same way, you can have this going on from generation to generation through genes. So it's hard to discover, but I believe it can be captured. This is an assumption again, but it is worth checking. But certainly, you always have this symbolic operation related to your lifetime that is beyond any question. And this is a totally different operation because, for example, it can be totally devoid of words, no words at all, just the pictures. And this is a totally different reality. And the thing is that if you have been participating in it, you recognize it easily. So you know the things that happen with this or this is this is natural for me. You know, I don't think. Well, sometimes I think, what can it be? But normal, and then I discover something. But normally, it comes in a very natural way. You just look at it and see, oh my god. There's a lot of Rihanna there. The Rihanna from the also. Oh, for example, if you take the song, the Sledgehammer song, the video clip, the song that Rihanna is singing. This is totally. This is exactly it. This is symbolic. This is the operation on the. This is an appeal to the symbolic operation of the brain, and the same concerns Bitch Better Have My Money. The last scene when she's walking, what I'm saying, primordial, tribal. You know, when she's walking like a goddess. I mean, like the queen, like a goddess. This is, you know, at one point it combines into one, and this is the symbolic appeal. I don't know why you had to make it, you know, blowjob in my mouth, as if you could not stand the appreciation. Perhaps your competition had a problem with it. Storage. Storage. So we have data. What sort of data we have? We have sensual data, certainly. So these are photos. So, you know, I look at something and I see something. And this is actually, when you open a Scientology handbook and you learn about the reactive mind, you actually get this concept that all your experience is a series of photos. And to be honest, I'm not certain about that. So I made a differentiation between photos and movies. And then you can say that, well, I'm a film director, so I can tell you easily that each movie is a series of photos. And I will say, well, I'm not a film director, and I'm not very good as far as movies go, but I do believe that there's more to a movie than a collection of photos put in an exact sequence, that they actually interact, which is the nature of the movie. And here we arrive at memes. So once again, meme is not the because normally when you hear meme, you have the idea of the pictures that you find in digital, so in the social media, digital social media, like, you know, showing some funny face or your favorite politician or the politician you don't like at all, and you have a comment that is very bright and you just love it. So we have a meme. Then I think you also use it to denote some sentences that you like someone said something or expressed something in a special way. For example, I'm not certain if this is correct, if I have not confused it. But I'm not sure if it's not really used also in the situations like, for example, when I said that, how did I put it? Your ignorance will not limit my lexicon. When I was talking about the Polish word skurwysyn, which is not easy to translate into any other language. Actually, I think it should become, in the end, perhaps it should be translated as a bastard. But it is not, the bastard is not as powerful as skurwysyn. And it has special, what do you call it, grounding, rooting, whatever, in the Polish culture, including the movie whose title is Freedom is in Us, and it is devoted to Jerzy Popiełuszko, the priest that was murdered by the communist regime. So skurwysyn is exactly the word to use about the abusive politicians, power, the people acting for the system that is totalitarian, that is against people, not for them, that actually guards its own interest and kills and destroys innocent people just because they are the enemy. Well, you don't have any definition of their hostility or enmity, in fact, but you assume they are enemies. So Agnieszka Rojek was the enemy of the civic platform. How come Agnieszka Rojek voted for the civic platform? She was a supporter of the civic platform. Well, now she is not, because she has learned it is a criminal party, but at that time she was a supporter, the loyal supporter of the civic platform. And, suddenly she learns she's the enemy of the civic platform, and thus she needs to be destroyed. I think that saying that you also use the word meme to denote something that someone said that can, catch, like, your ignorance will not limit my lexicon. But the means I have in mind and this gets be difficult here. Fragments of experience that have fragments of experience and their nature is the nature of a movie, and they have constituents. For example, an emotion which has a certain frequency, or a substance like a penis in your mouth, or like, you have a meme that comes from We Found Love, that was put onto my face with the when you have the Rihanna's bottoms with the and it's written mine on it, and you have the sex scene. they actually have sex, anal sex in them. So it was put onto my face, where my face became the bottoms with mine on my forehead, and the constant experience of copulation. Copulation? No, it's not copulation. Of anal sex. Well, unlike some people, I don't have a pains in my mouth, so this is mimetic engineering, which is an action of taking this fragment of experience, originally a live experience, recorded in the video clip, and installing it in my body. It has the vibration. I think the smell was turned off, but it can be actually turned on too. You can have a feel, like the texture. You can have the pain, for example, in your brain that is connected with the person having the experience being after drugs, or a party with a lot of alcohol. And of course, you have a headache that has nothing to do with your head. So this is one thing, the memes that can be put into your body. This is a crime, obviously. But the way I thought of mimetic engineering in the first place had to do with my experience in, basically it's connected with Rihanna too. On the night when I was lying in my bed and there was Rihanna's heart stamped onto my heart. And what happened on that night, apart from that stamp, I knew that there was some sex scene developing. I thought that it was actually Statuna Sandy, that Rihanna was having sex then. Perhaps it was a meme. So, a fragment of experience taken from her life and installed into my body. And it is actually happening. You do feel it happening. You can see it in my recordings because I was, I'm always short of time, and it's very difficult for me to do whatever to create any recording. So I was working on those recordings having to do with first with my education and achievement in Polish. And you have it. If you watch the recording, you will see the energies. You will see the space changing. You will see the vibrations around me. It is possible. And I do think that it is even more clear if you are a specialist and you can actually, because these are spaces, one space put on to another. So I do think that if you have this perfect computer that can disintegrate the image into energies of similar frequencies, you will see that there's some cluster of energy superimposed on another cluster of energy. One cluster being her bottoms, another cluster being my face. And I think they should, for example, it should show on a computer in different colors, for example, because these are different frequencies. But then so basically what happened then was Ryan's heart stamped onto mine. I was certain that she was having sex then. So this is then you have this spiritual sphere of life. I put it in the spiritual sphere of life where I mentally drew a curtain. I did not know she was my enemy. I did not expect any hostile because probably there had been some life and relationship development created between me and her by someone else, but I have no idea of it. I have never talked to Ryan. I just had this presence of her in my life for some reason. And so this was spontaneous. I drew a curtain to hide um, her sex scene. But then suddenly what appeared was there was a man. I'm not sure if he was from Bonnie M or if it was from someone else. But then there was the woman from Bonnie M, and she is a classic icon of a whore, like in the Rasputin song. No, not the. No. It's not the Rasputin song. It's the Ma Baker song. I think Ma Baker, the one with the car, and then so this is like there was an icon put into my space. So it was probably a creation. But then what happened was an appearance of Maya Rostowska and Ola Kicza presence. And at one point, I realized that there was space, my sacred space, from my experience in St. Mary's in St. Mary's Basilica in Krakow, taken out of my space and put into their space. I mean, that's what I understand. And my space was sexualized by Rihanna, if I understand correctly, or Ola, or Maya. So basically, what you have is my mean of being there in St. Mary's Basilica, which is a sacred experience of me connecting with the Holy Cross, me having that pure spiritual space which belongs to me because this is the life I have lived. With the icons, with the roses, probably connecting to royalty, with the emblems, probably connecting to aristocracy, but also to the Polish history. The Weitstoss altarpiece with the pieces creating it, and the sculpture of David, King David with the harp, and my own perception of it, seeing the sphere there, if I mean the thing that came to my mind. And then I thought what it was. That sacred experience that is mine is cut off and put into another person's space, attached to her overall identity. As an exercise of engineering. So you create a person that vibrates in a certain way, but it is totally false because it is me, not her, but it is taken as her. So that would be it in short. I hope you get the concept more or less now, and I hope you understand why it is criminal, and I hope you understand why I hate my enemies, because You live your life, and someone has been stealing it from you, depriving you of it, and making, damaging your life, beholding it, beshitting it. Like, for example, someone connects a, um, this is not mimetic engineering. Perhaps it is. Perhaps. Well, you can consider a pipe that carries. Or, for example, at first I thought that it was a pipe, but then I thought it might be the part of the body in which you have the excrements. So if that is put into your mouth, so you can actually consider it a meme too, because the excrements are going through it. Or a pipe with a waste. So this is perhaps you get connected to it, but but you would have to know the details of the process. But this is operating with energies which are mm, built into a certain meme, that is a certain movie, recording of some experience. Or what is it when everything Stephen and Sandy? Is it a meme too? A meme in creation. So that's where I am more or less now in my observations. I have not read, as I said, I have not read the. Oh, okay, and it can be also that someone puts those icons, like for example the one from the Bonnie M, but they can put different icons. Like I don't know, they can put an icon of some icons from the for example, Saint Mary, and give a impression that the person is protected by the Holy Virgin. Or it can also, for example, sexual experience, um, to activate a meme that gives an impression that one person is having sex with another, when the person has nothing to do with it. And then they started cutting off parts of my body also. So you can put a part of the body, like for example my face. In the recent days, I had Ora Kicha's face put onto my face. So, so what? Did you need the virginal body again to make an impression that she is a clean woman? Or did you need my intelligence? Because that's possible too. Data. Aha, what I wanted to say here, I think that there is indeed a danger of someone, well, like boys have learned about memes and now they are playing with it, so they are abusing other people because that's the nature of curiosity. But I still think that we have to risk it because, we have to find a balance between the abuse, which is sadly enough the dominating trend in people in our society nowadays. People have become very egocentric, very unethical. Like, the sort of jungle life, survival of the fittest. And this is why I believe we need to get that knowledge into schools, because people need to know why they are not to take the first 6 seconds. I mean, they need to know what is really happening. They need to know that this person looks attractive or unattractive, not because of what this person does, but what has been done to the person. And it's quite cool. I mean, if I stink, and, I'm fresh, pure, and there's nothing about me that would make me stink. Because even, when you say that, oh, your face is an arse because you shit, in Polish you say srać, that is to give, to let the excrements go. When you talk about some people, you talk negative things about them, you destroy their reputation. No, I do not do that. You have ruined my reputation. You had ruined my reputation, which made it necessary for me to deliver facts. And now we have to do the whole global PR action to establish the truth as my real brand. Take the oral sex. You have made people think that I promote oral sex, particularly blowjob. I have never given a blowjob, nor got involved in oral sex. There were two men who wanted to have it, but I have never given a blowjob, nor had an intention to do it. There were two who thought that I was thinking of it. No, I was not. I didn't have an idea that someone can think that, that I want to suck his penis. So my brand is totally different. So you absolutely have to repair it. And definitely I will never accept the corridor to my mouth. And all those sex actions happening around. So this is really, at the level where I will mobilize all the possible powers, because you have deprived me of life. Data, genetic. So I told you about operation, where I mentioned some data. By the way, you're talking about cognitivism and the creation of imagery, and then acting on the basis of the imagery, or where you have the model of the computing machine, brain as a computing machine. But you have data, genetic heritage. Okay, so data, sensual, photos and movies. Oh, okay, the data, thoughts. So this is also data. So you have an experience and you had some idea. Or you just have an idea wherever you are in the context. This is also data, all the thoughts you have had in your life. Then you have genetic heritage in your brain, stored in your brain. And the genetic heritage is of I'm really tired now. So this is family breed. There is one thing. Then there is species. Then there is culture. And apart from that, I have made those categories of physical and spiritual. I think that in the overall context of what I have been talking about, you get, oh no, storage, reincarnation, identifying the Dalai Lama. Exactly. So we assume that, I assume, not assume, for me, reincarnation is factual. I cannot think of life that has any sense that does not include reincarnation. Now, not in the sense that it makes no sense to live, but then, I mean, the spirit goes somewhere, and what does the spirit do then? And then we have the problem with, okay, so the spirit has arrived in the person of a little boy or a little girl, but let's say this is a little boy. How do you know he's the Dalai Lama? Because considering the level of spiritual manipulation nowadays, it is quite possible that this Chinese, or excuse me, Tibetan monk that comes to identify the Dalai Lama has already decided the boy is to perceive this or that and will make him so. As I said, that there was an article, I have not read it, in The Economist, I think, so you know the line of The Economist now, saying that more and more young Tibetans were unhappy about not having the comfort or luxury or the benefits the Chinese culture and lifestyle implied brings. Why I say they must be Chinese installations. How do I know that? Well, because you have the genetic heritage, culture, the category spiritual. That would not be a statement that a Tibetan man or woman would make. Thank you very much for your attention. It's been 1 hour, 49 minutes, 53 seconds, 4, 5. This is not the obvious, namely the count.